Madam CEO, would you like to get started? It's 2 p.m. Do we have everyone? Yeah, Marie's here and
We have everyone here, yes.
okay. All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and call the Clean Energy Alliance Joint Powers Authority Board meeting to order. It's December 17th, 2020 at 2 p.m. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Board Member Schumacher.
Present.
Board Member Drucker.
Here.
Vice Chair Becker.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are supposed to be in the city of Carlsbad today. So I'm hoping that Board Member Schumacher would lead us in the flag salute.
Happy to. You'll put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, there's the flag, a little late, but thank you. Okay, great. We are on board comments and announcements. Does any board member have any announcements or comments? Board Member Schumacher.
I just wanted to give a quick update on the work that Ty will be talking about a little later, but there has been quite a bit of work. The board gave me, kind of directed me to work with staff going back and forth with the error proceedings. And I just wanted to quickly highlight how much work has gone into this from the side of staff. And just wanted to thank them for that work before heading into their updates. I'm sure they're gonna update, but I also had something for item 6 and item 7. Just wanted to flag that for the chair once we choose the chair heading into that. Before we end up starting those items, I wanted to make a quick comment on item 6. So thank you.
Okay, great. And thank you for stepping up and doing that. And also, I'm sure you contributed a lot of work for that too. So thank you. So we are at item 1 right now. We need to go ahead and declare that we are vacant in the board chair position, and this term will be through June 30th, 2021. So at this time, does anyone have any thoughts on that, comments?
Sounds like Christy, you should become chair.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, I think it's the best way to go with the rotating type of city rotation. And so then I would like to elect our board member Schumacher, or the city of Carlsbad would be up next, and just keep the rotation going for hopefully those will last for a year. I think it is interesting. The first ones were 6 months, and then we'll get into our regular one come June 30th.
Would second that.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll for that?
Certainly. Member Schumacher.
Oh.
Aye.
Member Drucker.
Yes.
Vice Chair Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have some presentations today. We are going to get an update from our Community Advisory Committee Chair. We have our alternate board member Warden with us, and is he ready to give us an update?
Dwight, can you hear us?
Well, before he starts, I just do want to say that I had the ability to listen in, and we have a fantastically smart, enthusiastic, eager group, and it's a pleasure to have listened in on that. So we are very fortunate. So should we go on to the other, should we do the other presentation first while we work out those issues? Okay, so
Yes,
we also have
thank
a Clean Energy Alliance website refresh presentation.
Thank you, Chair Becker. Yes, I'm happy to announce that we did launch our updated Clean Energy Alliance website on time on December the 1st. And it is representative of where we are in our stage of development, if you will. And I'm going to ask our consultant, Sarah Madsen, she's from Trepepe Smith, who are our communications and marketing team, and they're doing a fantastic job at developing our brand and image and logos and translating that into the website. So I will turn it over to Sarah, and then she will share her screen and do a quick overview of the website and the features. So Sarah.
Thank you, Barb. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Madsen. I am a junior business analyst over at Trippepi Smith. Like Barb said, I was in charge of the management from the website redesign process from start to finish, and I'm very excited to share with you the final product today. I'll go ahead and take you through a tour of the website, and also I'm always happy to answer any questions you may have. So we can go get ahead and started. I will share my screen. Oh, it looks like the screen sharing is disabled at the moment.
Okay, can you try it now?
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, can you see it?
Not yet.
Let's see. Sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front. Let's see. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay, I think I figured it out. Okay. This should work. Can you see my mouse now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, sorry about that, but we can go ahead and get started with the tour now. So starting with the homepage, you'll see here on this top navigation bar, this holds some social media icons for easy access. We have a Google Translate language options, and we also have a button for easy access to signing up for email updates in the newsletter that will come out shortly. And then we'll move to our main navigation menu here, which will actually expand as we get closer to the launch and also post-launch as more information comes available for service tiers and opt-up and opt-out information. So this will grow as we go, but this is where our menu is at the moment. We also have search capabilities, but I just want to go ahead and point out that at the beginning stages of the redesign, Barbara shared with us that the residents in the areas you serve are highly educated individuals with an aptitude for engagement and learning about community choice energy. So with that in mind, we wanted to make sure that the placement of information on the priceless real estate of a homepage was used strategically in a way where we're making sure we're presenting the information that they need to understand CCEs and the benefits and how it works. So I'll go ahead and scroll along here, but this is our main hero image that we actually captured during our photo shoot a couple months back. I think it was in November. And we also have a button here for people to learn more. This was actually, we'll jump to the background page. But like I had mentioned, we have our benefits and we also have how it works as we go down. But first, before we go down there, I'll point out this quick links box. These quick links were actually decided on just based on what individuals might be interested in learning pre-launch. So understanding about who their members are, key documents that they might be interested in, agendas and minutes, FAQs, and media coverage. So all of these are things that people might be interested in learning pre-launch. This section is definitely alterable. Post-launch, there might be some more other pages on the website that are more pertinent for people's information, like maybe opting up or understanding your bill. So these can be changed out just based on what is more important at the time. And we can also decide those based on some analytic data to tell us what pages are most important to include in this area, especially since it's such a highly trafficked area and just important real estate, like I had mentioned before. So I'll go ahead and continue scrolling. We also have the benefits listed of choosing Clean Energy Alliance. We have this how it works graphic. I will point out a little hidden Mickey. If any of you guys are familiar with Disneyland, we have a hidden Mickey in our how it works graphic. In this first tile, our designer, Kevin Bostwick, who I believe you've interacted with before on these meetings, snuck in a C, E, and an A in this graphic. So that's kind of fun, but I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. So this is the How It Works section of the homepage, and we have some member agencies listed. And then in our footer widget area, we have the calendar for upcoming events as far as board meetings go and community advisory committee meetings and any other events, in the near future, hopefully near future, that may come up. We can have those listed here. We also have some links to recent news articles for CEA and the Facebook feed as well. You'll also notice this little guy here who follows me as I scroll through the page. That is the ADA compliance little tool that you can use as far as if you need bigger text, if you need stronger contrast, things like that. There are tools for people who need this on the website, and it's accessible right there, and it stays with you everywhere you go on the website. Okay, so I will go ahead and start with this About section. This section of the website features key information about CEA's inception, CEA's leaders and members, internal news, and external media coverage. We also have the agendas and minutes page in this dropdown, as you also saw in the quick links bar. This is obviously a very important part of the website, as this is public information and documents that need to be available to everyone. So we have it in a couple different places for access points, but this whole page holds PDFs and PowerPoint presentations and video recording links to everything that is relevant to board meetings and committee meetings. We have a sidebar navigation menu here that allows for an easy jump down to the CAC portion of this page as well. So that way, everything is kept really nice and tidy. As the years go on, these are actually collapsible. So you'll see 2019. So that way we don't have documents built up on top of each other, and 2018 is all the way down at the bottom, so it eliminates some scrolling for that section. And then I'll go ahead and move to the What is CCE? This section of the website outlines information laid out that we kind of already saw on the homepage, like the benefits and how it works, and also the FAQs that was in the quick link section. This is the information hub of the website for anyone who's interested in gaining a deeper knowledge of CCEs. So this is just a preview of the FAQ page. This is, again, a page that is a kind of a living document that can grow and shrink as necessary for however information ebbs and flows for this organization and what people need to know. Next, I'll move over to billing and rates. This is another portion of the website that will grow and expand as we get closer to launch with the residential rates, commercial rates, and joint rate comparison studies. Once those are available, those will live under this section. So this is this will grow in the near future, but this houses information that people will need to know about their options and how to understand their bill and things of that nature. Next, we have our resources page. This section of the website houses information or important documents, houses a job board, information about joining CEA, RFPs, and other information about privacy rights. This is the solicitation page that would house different active RFPs or RFQs, and also there are some buttons for submission of unsolicited proposals and things of that nature. Lastly, we have our contact page. This is what provides some contact information and a form for visitors who need to get in touch with CEA if they have any questions or need assistance. This form, once someone submits one of these forms, it triggers an email notification and someone can be in contact with them shortly. So that actually is the end of this little mini website tour. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen and follow along. And if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer those.
Great, thank you for that. I really love the photographs that you guys captured, and it's really good. Do we have any board members' comments, questions?
I would love to comment.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you for the exceptional work on this webpage. I was able to go through and take a look at it, and especially appreciate the information around the understanding your bill and what is a CCE, and can't help but love the hidden Mickey. You know, we were going through the brand conversation, and we all kind of piped up about that a little bit. So really well done. Great job. Can't wait to share it with our constituents.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again. Good work.
I just want to comment that it looks really clean and easily navigatable. So I thought it looked really good.
And I
Thank you.
do like the idea of putting that opt-up button prominently on the front page or
Yes.
something. So we'll get that done. But okay, great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks. All right. Do we have our alternate board member Warden available?
Yes, I am here. If you can hear me, I think I fixed my problem that was on my end about the muting. Yeah, we had a great first meeting, December 3. We let each of the new Citizens Advisory Committee members introduce themselves and say a little bit about their goals. We had a great presentation from Greg about Brown Act rules and financial disclosure and that sort of thing with a lot of questions. And we had a presentation that I guess you could characterize as CCA 101 from Barbara for everybody. And then we had some open discussion and a couple of takeaways. One, they are very much excited to help us with the rollout, but they felt that given their next meeting isn't until March and the rollout's going to be May or June, they wanted me to carry the message, which I said I would, to report to you that they would like to have another meeting in February. So I mentioned this to Barbara, and I think the way to do it, if you're okay with it, is we will put it on your agenda for January to schedule a February meeting for them. The second takeaway was they are inclined to start working in subcommittees so that they can do work in between quarterly meetings. And I told them I thought that was a good idea, and that Barbara and I will be helping them get going with that. But I think you're going to be very pleased with the energy from this group. We're not going to have to light a fire under them to get them going. We're going to have to put the reins on them to hold them back, if anything. So I'm excited. It was a great first meeting.
Great, thank you. You know, I also thought about, would it be possible that if we could send the agenda to them ahead of time, like you do to us? And I don't know if that would need to come from our CEO or from our chair, but I think that this is complicated stuff and they're really interested in learning. So would that be possible? I don't know.
Chair Becker, absolutely. We will add them to the distribution list.
Okay, great. And the other thing, and maybe we don't need to discuss it, but would it be possible to just go ahead and move their March meeting to February? Can we take that action right now as opposed to adding another meeting?
We can't change that now because that was a board direction before, so that needs to be agendized in January to change the meeting date. And you could either move their meeting up or you could add another meeting.
Okay.
I suspect what they want is to add a meeting. They think, I think correctly so, that there's a lot of what they can do for us and for you is between now and launch, and that a meeting in February and a meeting in March are a good idea.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. Thank you for being the chair of that.
You're welcome. I'm going back on lurking mode.
Okay. We have, do we have any public comment today on any of the items that are not on our agenda?
We have no requests to speak.
Okay. Okay, we are at approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I would like to approve the minutes. Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and second that. Can we call for the vote?
Member Drucker,
Yeah, I have read the minutes and they look fine to me, so I will vote yes.
Vice Chair Schumacher,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the consent calendar. Is there any board member that would like to pull one of the consent items? And I'm assuming we don't have any members of the public wanting to pull an item.
I would move approval of consent item 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Great. Can we call for the vote?
Member Drucker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Schumacher,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are at our new business, item number 5. And it's the Clean Energy Alliance Interim CEO Report and Regulatory Affairs Update.
Thank you, Chair Becker. I didn't have any particular items myself to report out unless the board had questions on my report. Otherwise, what I will do is turn the time over to our regulatory counsel, Ty Tosdal, as he has some very late breaking, high priority information for the board.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it. You all know that we do our best to provide the board with the most updated information. In this instance, there have been a number of developments that occurred at the Public Utilities Commission meeting today that I would like to report out. Those items, obviously, since they were decided today, did not make it into our materials that we submitted for the board. Most importantly, there were some developments in SDG&E's ERA forecast proceeding that I would like to bring everybody up to speed on and talk about. As you know, and as just further described in the board update that we provided, we obtained a favorable proposed decision in SDG&E's ERA forecast proceeding. And just by way of background, the ERA is the annual proceeding that takes place for each investor-owned utility, in which they reconcile their revenues and costs for the upcoming year, or anticipated for the upcoming year, with the rate approvals that they obtain in the general rate case. So we will be going through this on a regular basis. You may recall that we had identified a pretty substantial problem with SDG&E's ERA application. In setting the rates, they had taken into account departing load when they established their revenue requirement, and to determine rates, that is divided by the sales forecast, which reflects the anticipated energy usage. SDG&E had taken into account departing load for their revenue requirement, but not for their sales forecast. So when they did the final rate calculation, it showed a very substantial decrease in rates to the tune of over 12%. We identified that problem. We briefed it. The administrative law judge issued a proposed decision described in the board materials that instructed SDG&E to take departing load into account next year, specifically the customers that will be leaving the SDG&E service for CEA service and for SDCP service. So we considered that a major positive step forward in the proceeding. Monday, we got word late Monday night. We got word that there was a revised proposed decision, and that revised proposed decision eliminated all the language that we had asked for and would have permitted SDG&E to move forward with essentially an erroneous rate calculation. SDG&E's argument was that they had proposed to update their sales forecast. So you may also see the term billing determinants. I'll use those terms interchangeably. SDG&E's argument was that they had proposed to update the sales forecast in a separate proceeding, the general rate case phase 2, which started long before CEA became an entity. Unfortunately, that the updated sales forecast does not take into account departing load either. So SDG&E was essentially taking the position that departing load should not be taken into account, which would have driven a very substantial, artificial rate decrease. So the revised proposed decision, essentially adopted SDG&E's position. So we have spent the last couple days in, very intensive lobbying effort, so to speak, advocating for our position. This was done in conjunction with SDCP. The item was before the commission today, and it was fortunately held over until the January, the next meeting, which is on January 14th. That will give us time, hopefully, to work out something with SDG&E directly and to resolve this matter. The impact on CEA is quite significant. If the SDG&E's position were adopted as stated in the revised proposed decision, be looking at a very difficult rate environment from the competition standpoint. SDG&E's system average rates would be going down about 12%. On our recommendation, the original proposed decision, if that were adopted, would be looking at something much more modest, around 2%, around a 2% decrease in system average rates, a little bit over. So the item's held for now. So, you know, thankfully it wasn't voted out. This took quite a bit of effort, as you might imagine, on our part, CalCCA's part as well, SDCP's part as well. So, you know, I think for now it's you know, we have more time to work out the details with them. So that's where we stand right now. Want to make sure that I have a number of other things to report, but I'm going to stop there because I know this is such an important matter and of interest to all of you. So let me stop and we can talk through it a bit more, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick one really. Did we base our pro forma that's in item 6 on the 12% rate decrease or the 2% rate decrease?
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. It was based on the original proposed decision, which would have been the 2% decrease, not the.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions?
What is the city of San Diego's? Are they working with us on this also?
Yeah, San Diego Community Power is working with us. They are essentially in the same boat and have you know, the same interest in this proceeding. So we pursued this jointly from the get-go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Vice Chair Schumacher.
Thank you so much, Chair Becker. Just a quick question for the purposes of folks kind of understanding the importance of this for rate setting. The ERA proceedings will directly inform the conversation around rate setting that we expect to have a little bit further down the road, and will also help to inform the pro forma. I'm wondering if you can help for anybody watching to help folks understand how each of those 3 items are really interlinked and how that makes this a very fast moving and dynamic situation when it comes to looking down the line as to what we might be looking at for rate setting and the pro forma, and also any programs that we might be thinking about right now.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Schumacher. Those items are certainly closely related in the following sense. You know, traditionally CCA programs have looked to their utility in the territory as and specifically the utility rates as an index, so to speak, for their rates. So many CCA programs have looked at the utility and set their rates 1 or 2 or you know 5% lower than the utility, and they've structured their rates around the similar utility offerings. And there's a lot of value in doing that, and it permits customers to do side-by-side comparisons. I think prevents a lot of customer confusion when they're making choices about which program or service to use. And it simplifies our job and rate setting to some degree as well. And there are other reasons to do it. So in that sense, the utility rate is something that we look to and factor in when deciding our own rates. So the ERA proceeding really is critical in setting the rates for the utility for the next year. And so if there's a very substantial change in the utility rate, that typically entails a substantial change in the CCA rate, because the CCA rates index or peg their rates to the utility rate. So when there are big fluctuations like there are being proposed in SDG&E's rates, that has sort of downstream impacts on the CCA programs. I think with respect to the budget, and I'm sure that Barbara can speak to this in more detail, but if the utility rate setting process, while it has an impact on the CCA rate setting process, it doesn't generate any direct funds for the CCA program. So it's important for rate setting, but it doesn't, the CCA program still has to, generate enough revenue to cover its costs and so forth. So there's a dramatic decrease in the utility rate structure, and like most CCA programs, I know CEA is interested in setting competitive rates. Then that can have that can certainly impact the CCA program budget to the extent that there's a desire to both meet competitive rates, or set competitive rates, excuse me, and cover all the costs of power and so forth. So these things are actually very closely related, and I think that it's an excellent thing to point out and make sure everybody recognizes.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your work on this, Ty. I know
Sure. Thank you.
You've let us know over and over again that this is a precedent-setting proceedings, and I just want to appreciate how much work you're putting into it, and understand that we're going to make it through this, and you're just doing an exceptional job. I can't underscore that enough. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a team effort, but I appreciate that.
So I have another question. SCE and PG&E, did they kind of do the same type of stuff as the community choice energy groups were being founded and created in Northern California and LA area, et cetera?
Well, so couple points I want to emphasize in response to that question. Yes, there were a lot of obstacles in the road for the other CCA programs as they emerged. You can talk to some of the folks at Marin Clean Energy who've been around since the beginning, and they'll tell you all about PG&E's tactics and things that they did. That said, it is also the case that we now have 10 years of CCA program experience, statewide to draw upon. The other two utilities do not follow the same process that SDG&E has proposed to follow in the ERA proceeding. They update their sales forecast regularly as part of the ERA proceeding, instead of carving it up into different silos or different proceedings. So we can look to, just like we can, SDG&E could have looked to the other utilities to see how this was done, and they could have followed suit.
Let me just ask you too, so if SDG&E is setting, what it looks like this artificially low rate, and they fall short this year, would that mean that next year they would be required to have this dramatic increase in rates?
Yeah, that's exactly what we think would happen, but we're not sure when that would happen. So they would have to either wait until the end of the year, and in their subsequent ERA proceeding, they would have to recover the amount that was under collected. So if they set the rates too low, they're going to under collect, or possibly they would have to file an ERA trigger application. They've actually just filed an ERA trigger application for relatively, that would have, I should say, that would have relatively small rate impacts, but some rate impacts. But we're not sure when that would happen, and the timing of that is important. Obviously, we don't want an artificially low rate to be advertised by SDG&E during CEA's launch, for example.
Sure looks like that.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly when that would happen, and it may not be until 2022. And so we certainly have been doing what we can to ensure that the commission approves a rate that is not artificially low and reflects the cost of service.
Okay. All right, thank you for that item. Probably ready to move on to another one.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Also, not in your board materials because it was voted on at the commission meeting today. There's a description of this, but the information that I'm going to relay is not there. The commission adopted a decision in the PCIA trigger application, and we'll take everybody back 5 or 6 months ago. You remember SDG&E was they had hit their PCIA trigger, and they filed a application to collect the amount that exceeded the amount that they could collect with the trigger in place. We filed a protest to that application and got involved. We were working with CalCCA on this issue as well. And ultimately, we were able to come to an agreement with SDG&E to amortize that amount over 36 months. So that is, they were proposing to amortize it over 3 months. So that will help reduce the rate shock. Important for me to mention here that CEA is not going to be affected by that amortization schedule or that trigger balance because it relates back to costs that were charged to SEA customers and DA customers who had already departed utility service. So one of the other things we got as part of a stipulation that we entered into with SDG&E is that there was clarification that the 2020 vintage and 2021 vintage will not be collected from. I'm sorry, the trigger balance amount will not be collected from those vintages. Excuse me. So that's important for CEA. The other thing that we did secure is that there had been a question about the customer refund that was owed to customers that were bundled customers for part of the year and then leaving for CCA service. And SDG&E had proposed that since those customers were leaving utility service, they just forfeit the refund for the balance of the year. And we advocated that the refund be the amount of the refund for the part of the year that the customers were taking part in CCA service simply be transferred. And so that has been adopted as part of the decision that was approved today at the Public Utilities Commission. So that's also, it's a modest amount, but nevertheless, it is certainly some amount that is owed to the customers that will be departing for CCA service. So those are the highlights. I guess one more thing to mention is that part of the stipulation also was that that we support removing the PCIA trigger and cap mechanism in a future petition for modification. Reason being that that certainly does not achieve its intended purpose. The cap and trigger were put in place to keep limits on PCIA volatility. They have not done that. And so we, while the cap will be in place for 1 more year, but we are going to move forward and support the petition for modification. And then finally, one more piece of that is that any amount that exceeds the cap will be collected through a 12-month amortization in 2022. So we were able to get some relief in terms of the amortization period, which is important, and blunt the impact of the cap and trigger. Going forward beyond 2021, I think it's important to note that the cap will most likely not be in place, assuming the commission accepts the petition for modification. And so we will not have, we will be subject to more volatility in the PCIA than envisioned, but certainly we've already seen a lot of volatility. So,
Madam CEO, would you like to
Sure.
comment?
Yeah, Chair Becker, I just wanted to clarify with regards to the trigger application. It does apply to Solana Energy Alliance customers who will become Clean Energy Alliance customers because
thank you. Yeah.
they are part of a different PCIA vintage. So they will impact our customers that are coming from Solana Beach. And so that does impact them.
And do we have an estimate
Thank
of
you.
what the monthly amount would look like?
Yeah.
We do. I don't have that at my fingertips. I think the longer amortization period, it looks like a monthly bill increase of about a little over $2.50. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right. Any more good news?
Yeah, one more piece of news I'll share with everybody is that you'll recall that we received an advice letter from SDG&E setting our financial security requirement, and we had some issues with that. We filed a protest, and we have been communicating with both SDG&E and the Energy Division about that. We're expecting a new advice letter to be issued by SDG&E, and our expectation is that the amount would be set at the minimum. So some of that information is confidential related to this subject, so I don't want to get into any further detail about that, but we are working through that, and certainly things are headed in the right direction at this point.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we do not need a motion on that. Is that just to receive the information? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I assume we didn't have any public comment on item 5, I assume. And so I'm going to turn to item 6, and let me ask first, do we have any public speakers on item 6?
We have no request to speak.
Okay, and Vice Chair Schumacher, I wasn't quite sure if you wanted to make your comments before we take this item up or after.
Yes, I actually would like to bring up basically a motion to, based upon the conversation that we just had, a motion to continue this item to the next meeting of the board.
Okay, and why? Just when we have more information, is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, so this item was created and put onto the agenda prior to us finding out about the conversation that happened yesterday. And given the fact that that has been pushed off, the pro forma will once again be changed. And I want to make sure that that given some of the volatility in the conversation, that we're not having an update on something that is already outdated as of basically this morning, or that is still in flux in a way that may not be beneficial to the CEA at this point.
I would agree that we need to have some really good numbers to create this pro forma. Will we have better numbers, Barbara, by next time?
The ERA proceeding before the PUC has been continued to their January 14th meeting. So we will have information for the results of that action that we can then put into the pro forma for the board's next meeting.
But again, that won't be the final pro forma either, will it? I mean, I think our real numbers, I mean, this was just a snapshot in time to just sort of alert to us as to if we bought our energy today and if we did everything today. But our final numbers are not coming until like February or so. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the pro forma has, the revenue aspect of it, which the rates impact that. And then we have the expenditure side, The power supply, of course, is the largest item in that, which is affected by the energy market. And until we have locked down our contracts, the pro forma is impacted as the market changes. So that would change, will be different and updated in January when we bring it forward.
Okay, so you were planning to update us in January and in February? Is that?
Assuming that if this gets pushed to January, then we would update it and bring it back to the board in January, should that be the board's decision to continue this item. Otherwise, we would bring it back in February in light of our rate setting, timing of our rate setting.
Does that change your opinion at all? I mean, I feel that, I'd rather have the real numbers than have another maybe update that's not quite there yet. Vice Chair Schumacher, what do you think about that?
So having the next pro forma update be in February, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that seems, the best thing to do is to have all the information. And I appreciate that you, that we've got to look at things as they are today, but I'm hoping that, with our staff and our consultants being extra vigilant, we're going to be on the lookout for some really reasonably cost energy and that type of stuff. So these numbers hopefully are going to change. So I just don't know that it's even, that we have to do this again, January and February. I think that I'm okay to wait until we have the real numbers in February.
I concur.
Does that sound good with you?
Yes, I 100% concur with that. I think that is very wise to wait and not have two updates, but to have the one update when we have all the numbers. I think that's.
Does that sound okay to you, Madam CEO? Does that, or is there something you wanted to let us know today that is very urgent?
No, Ty gave the report on the urgent items, and we still have a lot of uncertainty around that. And it's, I think that's appropriate if the board decides that's what they would like us to do.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second the motion if we want to call for the vote. So I think the motion is to go ahead and give us a pro forma in February. Is that correct? Okay. All right.
Okay, Member Schumacher,
Aye.
Member Drucker,
Yes.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Okay, item 7, approve terms and conditions and product branding of Clean Energy Alliance initial default energy product options and programs. Madam CEO, would you like to present first? I know we do have a public comment to read into the record.
Yes, I'm happy to make my presentation, and I will share my screen. One moment. Okay, do you have the, are you able to see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So the item before the board for consideration has several different recommendations, and they are really surrounding beginning to identify our energy product options. We're not talking about setting those rates, but rather identifying what those products would be that then we will develop the rates around. Looking at the product names, and then approving our CEA terms and conditions, which then inform the customers or prospective customers regarding their rights and responsibilities with regards to taking service from Clean Energy Alliance. The first recommendation is to approve our energy product options to offer at launch, or other alternatives as the Clean Energy Alliance board determines. Approve the product names or other alternatives as determined by the CEA board. And lastly, to approve our terms and conditions for general service and our net energy metering program. With regards to our product offerings, the Clean Energy Alliance JPA agreement in section 6.5 does establish some general minimums with regards to our default product. And it does state that our base default product would be sourced from a minimum 50% renewable sources. And it also states that the board will establish optional product offerings with higher renewable and or GHG-free content for customers to select from. As part of developing the staff report, we did do a survey of community choice aggregation programs throughout the state and took a look at what their product offerings are. Of the CCAs, we looked at 19 of those CCAs offer, in addition to their default product, a voluntary 100% renewable energy product, also generally known as an opt-up product, where a customer would select to voluntarily enroll and pay at the premium related to that opt-up program. There are 2 that offer a voluntary 50% renewable energy product. So their default is lower than 50%, and they offer then the opt-up to 50%. In one of those 2 CCAs, their 50% is also 100% carbon-free. The differentiation between carbon-free and renewable is that currently nuclear energy and energy produced from large hydroelectric facilities are not considered renewable by the state definitions, but they are 100% carbon-free or GHG-free. Currently, there are no CCAs that offer a 75% renewable energy product in addition to a 50% or 100% renewable energy. The JPA member agencies, so each individual city does have the ability to select a default product. Should the board provide the ability, each member agency could elect a default energy product that was higher than the 50% minimum that was established in our JPA agreement. And the rates for that default product would be applicable of reflecting the premium of that higher renewable energy. One of the options we saw that other CCAs have elected is for those CCAs that have 100% renewable as their default energy. So they enroll all their customers at 100% renewable energy, that they do have an opt-down option. Clean Power Alliance in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, they have an opt-down to 36%, which is equivalent to the state minimum. And that's at a lower price. And the thought with that is that while the goals of the city are to achieve as high or as much clean energy as possible, there may be constituents within those cities that have concerns about cost. And rather than having the only option for those customers would be to opt out, they offered the product to opt down to address those cost concerns. And so it gives the ability for the customer to remain a customer of the CCA without having to pay the higher rate of the renewable energy, 100% renewable. Based on the JPA agreement and the research conducted, the proposal before the board is to have the 50% energy renewable product set as the minimum default option. So cities would not be able to select anything lower. Their minimum default would be 50%. That there also be a 100% renewable energy product offering that customers could, who are not defaulted into 100% renewable, could voluntarily opt up to. And that option would be available for a community to select as their default energy. In addition, that the board consider an energy product, a voluntary energy product that would be set at the minimum state renewable portfolio standards option. It would be a voluntary product for a customer to elect to opt down to. It would not be available for a community to elect as a default energy product because that would not be consistent with our JPA agreement. And again, the reasoning, the thought there was it would give an alternative to those customers who are concerned about pricing to have a product that is lower cost. Rates for the products that are determined by the board would then be set by the board in February. So staff would work to develop the rates based on the product offerings the board did select. Then in addition to that, we would want to identify product names for our energy products. They're selected to reflect Clean Energy Alliance's identity and brand. In developing recommended names, we felt that it's best to avoid reference to renewable content. So we wouldn't want to put 50 in, for example, in our product offering, because our goal is to increase our minimum default to 100. So once we bump up to 52 or 54, the name would need to change to reflect the product. We took a look at our communications team and staff took a look at the JPA agreement, and we also reviewed board adopted policies to get a feel for, what type of theme or identity are we trying to achieve. And a theme that seemed to be consistent is that, a goal of Clean Energy Alliance is to make an impact on our communities. We want to impact the local economy. We want to impact the environment by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We want to impact the communities by bringing local jobs, by supporting local businesses. And so it became a word that we felt reflected a goal of Clean Energy Alliance. So from that, we came up with some initial recommended names. Green Impact was, we thought, would go with the 50% renewable energy product. Clean Impact would be the 100% renewable energy product. If the board were to select or approve a minimum RPS option, we thought Local Impact, because the customer is still supporting the local program, would be could be an option for that product. And then we have our net energy metering program, which we will offer to customers who have rooftop solar, and to reflect that product reflecting someone who did something on their own rooftops. Personal impact would be appropriate. And then we would continue that theme of impact in developing names for future products and programs that the board would adopt and bring forward as part of Clean Energy Alliance. Before we go to terms and conditions, we did also come up with some icons related to the product names, and I want to take a moment to share those with the board. So these are some the icons that were developed to reflect those three product names: Green Impact, Clean Impact, and Personal Impact. We would use them on our website. So that when the customer was to click, go to the website and select and learn about the product offerings, the icons would be a part of that communication. We would also be reflected in our mailers and other marketing materials that we might develop for when we're marketing and advertising to customers.
Very good.
And last but not least is the program terms and conditions. As I mentioned, these spell out the customer rights and responsibilities related to taking service from Clean Energy Alliance. They're developed on best practices and recommendations to guide CCA operations. They provide information on topics such as billing, enrollment, discount programs such as CARE and FARA, which all customers continue to receive the benefits of those programs when they enroll in CCA. It also talks about opting out and what happens if they fail to pay. The net energy metering terms and conditions, which apply only to those customers who have enrolled in net energy metering through SDG&E, would receive credit for the electricity that's generated by their program, and those credits are calculated based on the rate that's in effect at the time those electrons are being generated. They also receive a charge for energy they're using based on the rate that's in effect at the time the energy is being used. At the end of each billing period, there's a reconciliation of how many credits were earned by their system and again offset against the charges in the billing period. If they've earned more credits than they've incurred in charges, the net excess credits would flow to the next billing period to use to offset those charges. If there is a net charge, then that charge would flow to the customer bill. In an SDG&E territory, customers who are on net energy metering are not required to pay their monthly bills. They only are required to pay it at one time, but they do have the option, should they choose, to pay their bill at any point in time during the 12 months. At the end of the 12-month period, so CCA customers are put into what's called a relevant period for 12 months. We look at how many kilowatt hours were generated by their system, and we compare that to how many kilowatt hours did they use over that same 12-month period. If their system generated more kilowatt hours than they used, the customer would be eligible for net surplus compensation. And that net surplus compensation rate would be set by the board in February. And typically CCA set that rate higher than the incumbent utility. In Solana Beach, the Solana Energy Alliance net surplus compensation rate is 6 cents per kilowatt hour. SDG&E's net surplus compensation actually is reset every month. Some months it's been 2 cents, some months it's been 4 cents, but Solana Energy Alliance has always been higher, and that's typical of CCA programs where they set that rate higher. As part of the payout process for the net surplus compensation, if that compensation exceeds $100, we would pay that to customers in a check. If it's less than $100, that credit would then flow to the customer's account to be applied to charges. And then everything sets to zero and we start the 12-month program again. And this proposal does mirror what customers are used to with SDG&E's net energy metering program. And that does conclude my presentation on those various items, and I will be happy to answer whatever questions that the board may have.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have a few questions, but anybody else want to go first? Okay, as you know, SEA has a default product of 50% renewable and 75% carbon free, and I'm wondering if we can keep that option open for discussion, because I would hate to take that away from what they've been used to. Is that one that we can leave in there for, as we look at the pro formas and things like that? And that would be for just Solana Beach to be able to, I mean, whoever else can choose it too, but we could choose that as our default product. Is that correct?
It's certainly at board discretion. If the board wanted to have a 50% renewable, 75% carbon-free option, you could give us the direction to come back and price that when we loop in with our rates. That's the board discretion.
Okay, I can ask them that later. All right, and so you said, let's see. How many California CCAs did you say offer that opt-down provision or product? Sorry.
In my research, when I was looking at CCAs who have default into 100% renewable. It was just Clean Power Alliance. They had several cities that individually had elected to have their customers defaulted into 100% renewable, and they were the only ones that had that opt-down that I came across in researching.
And so you're saying that that does not conflict with our JPA agreement where we set the default product with minimums. I'm finding that hard. It seems to me there's a conflict there, but you're saying we just set the default product. We did not say if cities want to elect to opt down, I guess.
Well, it won't be that the city would opt down. It would be just individual customers would be able to opt down. So the default is going to have to be at the minimum for all the communities, 50%.
Exactly. Okay. And so
But there could be individual customers under this option could themselves opt to a lower level. But again, that's going to be your choice as to whether or not you think that is consistent with, the goals and policies of CEA.
okay. And I'll save my questions for after. I know we do have a public comment, but do we have any more questions from board members before we go to public comment? Yes, Vice Chair Schumacher.
Thank you so much. In thinking about the options that we have in front of us and thinking about, we've previously asked about getting some information about the PCC1 renewable energy, which may interact differently with the carbon-free option that Chair Becker was highlighting. Also with the strategic plan moving forward on how an opt-down option might financially impact the JPA. I'm wondering if any of that has been, do we have any information on that to look at yet in thinking about the financial impacts related to these programs and options that we're considering today?
We did not do a pro forma on those alternatives. At this point, the pro forma that we had looked at was the 50% renewable with the increasing the 100% PCC1 over time.
Okay. And then just for my clarity in support of, I hear loud and clear what Chair Becker is saying, and I just want to get clear on the customer base that's coming over from SEA, and then the wanting to respect the first CCA in the region with those constituency with the customers. There is some conflict, I guess, potentially between us making a decision around which bucket, which PCC, as well as doing a carbon-free option. Is that my understanding? Am I because the carbon-free includes nuclear, and we were having a conversation about excluding nuclear.
I'm gonna put our technical consultants, John DeLacy, maybe on the spot and ask him if he could weigh in. I would say that the nuclear is not an energy product that's really available. So the carbon-free would come from large hydroelectric facilities. But if John doesn't mind commenting.
Yeah, so yeah, I think generally speaking, nuclear is not available. However, it could be if that was an acceptable resource. And I say it could be for until about 2024, because PG&E has a lot of nuclear, and the expectation is that that will be allocated over to the Northern California CCAs, and a lot of those CCAs don't want to accept it. So there's a possibility, if there was an interest, in probably getting some low cost, low premium, right? Relatively low cost, carbon-free energy sources. Otherwise, we'd be looking at large hydro, a lot of, or what they call ACS, which is imported energy from the Pacific Northwest from utility systems that are predominantly large hydro. They do have some other resources in there in the mix, but they have defined carbon emissions rates that CARB has approved, and they're very, very low.
Okay. Thank you for that. I just, the reason I'm asking is largely because I want to make sure that the larger scope conversation that we're having about setting what this board wants to do, that we understand how it would impact the SEA customers coming over. And I think that's important, and that Chair Becker continues to remind us of that as we're thinking about an established customer base coming over with certain already pre-established programs in place. So I want to be able to be conscientious in support of our customer base over in Solana Beach. So thank you for helping me with that. And then has this agenda item been vetted through the knowing that we've just launched it, but through the Community Advisory Committee just yet?
It has not.
Okay. Okay, that's it for questions for me. Thank you.
Christy, why don't we go ahead and hear public comment, then I'll ask my questions.
Sure, yes. I know we have at least one to read into the record. If we could have Madam Clerk do that.
Certainly, the comment comes from Micah Mitrowski, and it says, DCEA board members, I am submitting these comments on behalf of the IBEW Local 569. We support moving forward with the minimum 50% renewable and 100% renewable products. Revenue generated from the premium in the 100% product can be set aside in a fund dedicated to local programs and projects in the service territory. Local investments linked with job quality standards and community benefits agreements, prioritizing communities of concern, can bring much needed economic and environmental benefits to communities most in need. Additionally, it is concerning to see a proposal in the staff report for a minimum state renewable portfolio standards product. Staff notes this is 36% in 2021, increasing to 39% in 2022. This is less than SDG&E's current renewable energy portfolio, which currently stands at roughly 45% and is the wrong direction for our region and our climate. We urge the board to reject the minimum state renewable portfolio standards product offering. Finally, we appreciate the priority the board has placed on Category 1 energy over the past several months and reiterate our support for Category 1 resources to maximize economic and climate benefits. Thank you for your consideration, Micah Mitrowski.
All right, thank you to Mr. Mitrowski. Board Member Drucker, would you like to go ahead and ask your questions?
Yeah, so Barbara, what have the other CEAs done in terms of their naming, shall we say, the various levels of provision?
Some of the consistent themes that we say would include the word clean, green, pure green, evergreen, those sorts of things. So some do have 100 in their 100% renewable energy product.
Okay, so they're kind of just going green, clean, local, or something like that, rather than having impact?
That's very common. Yeah.
Okay.
They're very common.
In terms of the 36% versus whatever the kind of the average that SDG&E is offering, is that something that would make sense, or is that too difficult to explain?
Are you asking if a lower renewable energy would be an alternative to the 36% would be to match where SDG&E is?
Yeah.
That's certainly a direction that the board could give if they were interested in that concept, something as an alternative to the minimum state to match the minimum SDG&E. I think in that scenario, the difference in the rate may not really, in the cost, wouldn't necessarily impact the rate, for the customer that we would charge. But it's so close to the 50%.
Yeah. Finally, is the concept that we, the board, will determine what the default will be, or is it each city that determines the default?
The JPA agreement established that the minimum default for Clean Energy Alliance is at the 50% renewable. Should the board want to also offer an alternative 100% renewable or some other default product, then the individual cities would select those, or those individual city councils would provide direction for that selection.
So let me make sure I understand. So if the board were to say, we're going to set the default at 100%, each city could turn around and say, well, we'd rather have the default be 50%.
I think
We need to get direction from your city council before.
Yeah, and I think it's the other way around. The JPA document establishes 50% is the base default, but it also established that the board could authorize alternative higher renewable
Right.
energy products to choose from.
Right. So the default automatically is going to be 50%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I do feel, I appreciate the public comment that we had. And I do think that, for the purposes of discussion that, we have a duty to be fiscally conservative on this board. And I do want to explore those other options. And I'm not sure that even Solana Beach would be interested in the opt-down product, but I do want to throw some things out there just for discussion with my colleagues, is that what if there were other cities that, we are hoping to have some other cities join us. What if other cities may not have as aggressive climate action plan goals as we do? I'm just wondering, would another city be able to still have that option open to them if they had, I don't know if that's a way that might attract other cities, but would there be an availability for other cities to choose to have an opt-down provision, whereas other cities might not want to have that? Or is it the case that if you have an opt-down provision, every city or every resident has the opportunity to opt down if they so choose? You have to make that available to every resident, I guess is what I'm saying, in the member cities. And I don't know who that's a question for.
That's a very good question. If I understand your thought, is if the board were to determine that they would make available on an individual customer basis a product that was set at the minimum state, could an individual member city state they didn't want to have that offering available to their communities? Is that what you're asking?
Right, I'm just saying, yeah, is there a way to have it open to certain cities and not other cities if they so choose?
I'm not sure of that, and I want to take a further look at that because, again, this opt-down below 50% really only can be done on an individual customer basis. And if we're going to offer that as a potential option, I'm not sure we can make that a decision of the local city. I think that may have to be offered across the board, but I really would have to give a little more thought to that as to whether that would be possible to just let a city choose an opt-down below 50%. But again, that opt-down wouldn't be for a community at large. It would just be an individual customer would make that choice.
And then also, is that something that we could offer maybe to only lower income residents or small businesses, and also even put a cap on that? Because otherwise, we don't want to defeat the purpose of
Right.
having a CCA. But is there a way to do it that way, that you just limit it?
That definitely be possible. I could say for sure that if the board was going to apply that across the board, that in every community there could be this opt down by a customer. You could add additional criteria, and that additional criteria could be income or again, some size of business, that type of thing.
Okay, and first off, that we are positive that that product would be at a rate discount. Is that correct?
It would be at a lower rate than 50% just to reflect the lower cost, because we wouldn't have that additional premium related to the increased renewable percentage. You know, at this point, I don't know how that rate would compare to SDG&E, but it would be less than the 50% renewable.
Okay. Let's see. It just doesn't seem like it would make any sense if it wasn't less than SDG&E. I mean, and I think that, you know, I guess the purpose of this, and I thank you for being creative and trying to find some solutions, since, you know, the pro forma that we looked at in our agenda today wasn't all that rosy. I think, you know, it's nice to look at other options. And I think, you know, I appreciate that. I'm just not sure that that fits within our stated goals, but anyway, any other board member comments? And again, this is not a decision we're making today. This is a decision that, can we take that back to our respective city councils to get advice on that? Or is this something that we do need to make the decision today?
Chair Becker, if the board wanted to hold off on the decision until January, I think that's fine. We would want to have some direction though in January in order to develop our rates to bring back for consideration in February.
Okay.
So to bring it in front of my council, it would sure make sense for Barbara to come and explain this. You know, I can explain it, but it would be better to have a professional, shall we say, explain it. I feel comfortable with the 4 tiers, shall we say, green, clean, local, and personal. I think they make sense. I would hesitate on the local for us to look for to get people to give to us, you know, be qualified that based upon income. That's always a tricky thing for a public agency to find out people's income. So, you know, and the other side of that is you know, if everybody were to opt for the cheapest or the local impact, then, you know, we are not fulfilling the principles of why this group was formed, which
Yeah,
is to have a minimum of 50%.
Right, I agree. I also thought, I mean, this is just an idea, probably just so we can sort of limit the opt-out, right? So, I mean, we had to get kind of creative at this time. I don't think that we would have ever been thinking like this had SDG&E not come forward with, you know, this artificially low generation rates and increasing the PCIA charge. So I do appreciate the creativeness of it. And I just don't know how it would exactly work. If it did, I mean, we'd be in trouble too if we had a bunch of people opting out. So I'm glad that we're considering it. Vice Chair Schumacher.
Thank you so much. I think I would really like to hear from our community advisory committee on this before we move forward. It's a part of the reason that we formed the committee was to get some more broad feedback. So I'll be making a motion to refer it to the committee for review before we take any action on it. Second, I think that the discussion, Chair Becker, around the opt-down option being associated with an equity component is actually a really great idea. SDG&E actually has products that they associate with equity that you would have to apply for and actually show a statement of basically a financial statement. So that's actually within the role of a utility to do that. So if there's a residential equity impact and then a commercial equity impact, I'm open to exploring that, but only for equity purposes. And I'll refer to climate change policy at the United Nations. A lot of the work that they're doing up there around developing and developed countries when it comes to policy and greenhouse gas emissions is largely, I think, where they get really locked up is sort of these really wealthy, affluent states coming into developing countries and saying, don't do as I do. We've been able to develop by pumping out a bunch of greenhouse gas emissions, and now we're going to come in as you're now moving into building your middle class and manufacturing and producing, and now we're going to tell you you can't do the same thing. And so this conversation about equity and how we grapple with the percentage rates of renewables is par for the course across the board when it comes to conversations like this, from local all the way up to global. So I think it's smart for us to consider an equity impact that is connecting with the socioeconomic conversation that we've really committed to threading through this organization. And I also want to make sure that our advisory committee and us as a board are thinking about that 75% option as well. I also really want to make sure that we understand the financial impacts. If we're going to commit to putting an opt-down option that's tied to socioeconomic triggers, we need to understand how that's going to impact our business plan, because we need to know what the number of customers that might fit into that and how it would impact even the pro forma that we're looking at down the line. So I'm not ready to move on this right now. I do think it's important for our community advisory committee to weigh in, and then for us to have a better financial picture based upon some of the options that we're kicking around. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, Corey, before you make a motion, I'd like to ask Barbara, basically she says we need to determine this by January. Is that correct, Barbara?
Ideally, that would work out, but we could develop different rate schedules with different potential options that we've heard and be ready in February for rate setting and provide the opportunity for the community advisory committee to look at it.
So the concept would be in January, we'd ask the community advisory committee to meet in early February so that they could opine on this.
I think the timing is way too short for that. Honestly, I don't want to be shooting that idea down, because I do think that's an important committee. But what I see as more important is taking this back to your own city councils. Can you do that in January? And then we could have a quicker decision, because honestly, these are important decisions, and I just don't think that the committee is up to speed on this. I don't think that they're going to be as helpful as coming to your city. They could also actually come to your city council meeting and public comment at that time. I think it might be better to do that, because we do need to make a decision on this if we're going to move forward. We're getting too close, and I think we do need to see the financials. So that's why I do want to make sure that we include the 75% carbon-free option, and maybe we should just include the opt-down provision and go ahead and get some numbers on those, because I don't know that any of us can really decide this without the numbers.
The other
But
thing
I don't think that we need to go through the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Yeah, so for Del Mar, we'll have a meeting January 11th. We may continue that meeting to the 19th, but those are, that's the only time really that Del Mar is going to be able to weigh in on this would be January 11th. January 19th, would that be too late for the next meeting of this? Once the meeting is the 21st, so that would work. The other question I have is, do we have any information on how many people within our area are, getting rates from SDG&E that are based upon their income? And do we have any provision for that at all? Like Corey was asking?
Yes, so we should be receiving a report from SDG&E tomorrow that provides us information on how many of our customers are enrolled in the CARE and FARA programs, which are programs that are administered by SDG&E for low-income qualified customers. And so we will have that information available to us in terms of how many of our customers, and they would continue to receive their benefits of those programs as a Clean Energy Alliance customer.
So would they be getting the 36%, the local impact, or would they get the green impact? What would they get from us?
I think that's what the board is discussing at this moment.
So are you saying that they might not really even benefit from the opt-down provision necessarily if they already can keep their low-income status from SDG&E? Those programs carry over, so maybe we're really not doing anything to help them.
To clarify, the lower RPS program, CEA's rates on per kilowatt hour would be lower to reflect the lower cost of that energy to us than the 50%. So it would be an additional benefit to those customers beyond what they're getting from through SDG&E.
Okay, and then if we decided that maybe small businesses needed to be included in that, that would be a great benefit for them because they don't get the other benefits. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so is that okay with you, Vice Chair Schumacher, that we don't have to put this through the Citizens Advisory Committee, that we just move forward with our respective city council meetings and maybe make sure that if they want to come to those meetings and do some public comments or that type of thing? I don't want to delay this any more than we have to, and I'm not sure that they're just really up to speed yet.
I think I think it was mentioned earlier that we're going to be forwarding agendas and different things to the different advisory members. So maybe we can make sure that this item, the same item that would be presented to our city councils, would also go to the advisory members, and that they would contact their respective board members with input. I'd be comfortable with that. I want to make sure I'm capturing their work as well.
Wait, so when we have our city council meeting and that agenda item is on there, we would want to make sure that that went to all of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Okay, so I guess we would just send that. Does that go through you, Madam CEO, that would go through you to send to them, or because I don't have all of their contact information?
Yes, we could handle that distribution.
Okay.
And then as far as the different options, I just want to make sure that there's going to be a financial side to it as well. And one of my concerns is we're not going to know how these programs are going to be impacted. It's kind of like I'm trying to figure out, we're going to be deciding on programs before we actually have the rates set. And so that seems a little complicated to me as far as making decisions about programs before understanding what the rates are. So how does that work?
I understand the dilemma. It's what do we do first? Do we determine what programs we want to offer and price them, or do we make assumptions and bring prices? So we're just looking for direction, and certainly if it doesn't work in the pro forma or the rates don't work out, the board would have discretion to determine not to move forward. with a particular product or option. But really, we want to make sure that we're spending time evaluating programs that reflect what the board supports.
Okay. Would it then be just for the purposes of helping the public understand that these are not necessarily set in stone until we have the rate set, to move forward with draft recommendations in order for the staff to have direction, and then to have during rate setting or potentially after rate setting to have some type of review of the programs to finalize those programs based upon the rates? Would that work?
That does work. And I think that, if we had more direction with alternatives, including, the board wanting to keep on the table the 75% carbon free, we could bring those back. We could look at the impact to the pro forma in February when we're bringing the rates back, and the board could evaluate those decisions with that information.
Okay, because I think that we will still also be reviewing pro formas that have the 100% PCC1 renewable at launch versus a phased in approach too. So there's this really cool but very nebulous place that we're still in with all of this. So I appreciate that we can do all of that at that meeting. And with that, I'm happy to support the recommendation of bringing this to our respective councils, with the 75% carbon-free option, as well as like an equity impact for residential and small businesses.
Okay, did you want a separate motion on that one, or do we want to go on to the other two? Because we still kind of need to go through the product names and the terms and conditions. So how would you like that motion to be?
Well, Ms. Boswell, you want to, probably the product names should wait until we know for sure what the products are going to be. But how did you want to do that?
I think the names are great. I love the impact, the word impact on there. So, I mean, assuming we go with all those, I think those are good with me. I don't, so.
Would you be open to changing local to equity? Or I'm not attached to the name. I just wanted to reflect what we're trying to do.
Equity and impact really don't go together. And I guess, again, I'm a little bit confused. People that are getting a rate subsidy by San Diego Gas and Electric currently, wouldn't they want to continue with San Diego Gas and Electric because we wouldn't have that subsidy? Or would we have the subsidy?
We do continue to have those programs in a CCA.
So those people wouldn't be picking local impact. They would be picking, I want to continue on my whatever SDG&E is calling it, right?
Board member Drucker, so the customer would continue to receive their, the care and FARA discounts are reflected on the delivery side of the bill, and SDG&E continues to provide that service. The generation side of the bill, if you look at your current SDG&E bill, you have delivery charges and you have generation charges, and the care discount is not in the generation side, the commodity side, and that's the side of the bill that Clean Energy Alliance replaces. And so what the board is discussing is the potential of a product that's below the typical default or the mandated default that they could opt down to, and that would be a lower per kilowatt hour rate. They would not be selecting SDG&E for generation because in this scenario, they would be a Clean Energy Alliance customer for the electric generation side of the energy business.
So a little confusing still. So let's say I am on the, or a person is on the, has a subsidy from SDG&E, and they pick with us to be clean impact. They want 100% renewable. So the generation charge would be based upon that. The distribution charge would reflect and reduce their bill so that it would continue to be a subsidized bill.
Yeah, the amount of what you're calling subsidy or discount, that dollar amount will stay the same. If Clean Energy Alliance doesn't offer, if all they offer are the 50% and 100%, the customer's current discount they're receiving for their program, dollar for dollar, it's exactly the same, whether they're SDG&E customer for their generation or commodity or their Clean Energy Alliance. So they're receiving, if the customer's receiving a benefit of an average $30 a month, it's still going to be the same. But what the board is discussing is potentially, if we did offer the lower our renewable product, that they'd have the benefit of the lower cost compared to the other products that CEA is offering customers.
Okay. So yeah, so local impact would be what they'd probably want to select, and their bill would most likely could be less than what they're paying with us through SDG&E.
And that's one of the calculations or pieces of information that we want to bring back to the board is
Right.
how that would, yes.
And then also what the threshold would be for the commercial side of things is going to be very important.
Yeah. Do you have any idea?
I have
Yeah.
no reference point for that.
So, I mean, the main thing is we would like these customers not, if we have to start with maybe, I hate the word premium, but if we're a little bit above SDG&E's rates only because the PCIA rate is so high, we would hate to have people have to opt out because they don't want their bills to be any higher, even though it's, I don't know, $3.50 monthly written on there. But so this will help us with that type of situation, is that, hopefully we can hold on to some of those customers. So and that's the major part of this, I guess.
Yeah, and I just just to underscore, highlight, and amplify what Chair Becker has just said, coming out of COVID, we want for this venture to be supportive of our regional and even sub-regional and even our regional economic resiliency. So if this is something that we can offer to just in support of that to residential and commercial customers at a certain threshold, then I think that's, I'm happy to support that.
Okay, and so it sounds like we might just want to leave the local impact name as is right now. So I think we're in agreement on items 1 and 2. And did anybody have any comments on item 3, the terms and conditions? I will tell you that SEA has those basically exactly the same, but there's a few improvements on these terms and conditions. So I'm happy to support those.
Yeah, I'm happy to support them. It seems like they're the same terms and conditions that SDG&E has. So I think it's really important that we follow. Otherwise, the people that do have rooftop solar will not feel that they should need to be opting in.
Okay.
So we should have a motion on this item to formally have the board adopt the terms and conditions today.
Okay, so are we ready to formally adopt all of the conditions? It sounds like we might be able to do that.
Yeah, with the addition of the 2 items we talked about, which is incorporating the 75% carbon free, as well as ensuring that the minimum state renewable portfolio standards product is specific to a certain threshold for residential and commercial and not available to all customers.
All right.
So basically the local impact is only going to be available to those people that are qualified through SDG&E. Is that what you're saying?
We need to be able to look at that option because that doesn't fall, as far as I know, within the commercial side of things. So I would rely on staff to bring back more information to us about the qualifications.
Well, I think I'm more than happy to approve the SCA terms and conditions, general service, and net energy metering. I'm happy to approve the product names. At this point, I just think we need to have a little bit more information about the various tier, whether it's going to be how the local impact tier will be set, and also the 75% carbon free, which are not in that.
Yeah,
I think that the motion is to take those options before our respective councils.
Yep.
We're not approving those today.
Right. There's two parts to this. One is direction to staff and next steps. The only item really that I think you're really taking final action on are the terms and conditions today. Those, I believe, then would be adopted. I mean, that's one thing you could do.
Okay, why don't we make a motion to adopt those terms and conditions? I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, and let's call for the vote on that item.
Member Drucker,
Yes.
Member Schumacher,
Aye.
Chair Becker,
Yes.
motion carries.
And then do we want to make a motion for direction on the other two? Is that what you'd like to?
I think that's a good idea, just so we can capsulize the direction you're giving to staff right now. So that would be, I think, the best way to go.
Okay, and again, none of this will be finalized until we saw the numbers. I mean, none of us can go ahead and say we want all these things when the numbers could be just absolutely.
Keep it positive.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
So I would move that we ask the CEO to make presentations at the various consoles, the 3 consoles, between now and January 20th, so that we can get feedback onto the various tiers, and also that the tiers, the 4 tiers are acceptable, and we would like to add a 5th tier of 75% carbon neutral, and ask the executive director or the CEO to come back on January 21st with understanding what the feedback is from the consoles, and also give us some type of economic impact of these various tiers based upon the knowledge that she will have at that time.
Yes, CEO.
I want to clarify the timing. So we had previously said the pro forma would be coming back in February when we have better information. So I think what would happen in January is reporting out of what came from the city councils, and then we can bring forward in February the pro forma and how it looks for rates, if that's acceptable to the board.
That timing works for you. That's great.
Yep, that's fine with me.
And we'll just be subject to your schedule as far as if you're able to attend our meetings. I mean, we can't really ensure that, but and maybe it's just it's worth just a phone call to the city managers to explain whatever if you can't attend, Madam CEO.
I'm happy to make myself available as needed.
Okay, so all right, so was that a motion? Was that a clear enough motion of direction? Okay,
Yes.
and do we have a second on that? Oh, also, okay. Vice Chair Schumacher second, and we can call for the vote.
Member Drucker,
Yes.
Member Schumacher,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ooh, okay, we are on to item 8. Authorize credit solution with JP Morgan for Clean Energy Alliance startup and work capital. I'll turn it over.
Christy, before we start, I do need to recuse myself from this item because I do have financial interest with JP Morgan Chase. So I'm going to go on mute and drop my video, and I'll come back once you've all decided.
All right. Are you going to have alternate board member Warden step in, or I mean, we still have a quorum?
I would
Have a
love
quorum.
to, but I'm also conflicted. I own shares in JP Morgan, so I can't vote either.
Okay.
So it'd be
Okay.
fine for 2 members to decide this one.
Okay. All right. Madam CEO, I think you've been on mute.
Unmute myself. Okay, the item before the board at this time is an item that we've actually had before the board over several meetings. Based on direction from the board and evaluation of credit offerings, we are recommending that the board authorize the interim CEO to execute all documents and take all necessary actions to secure Clean Energy Alliance's financing for startup and initial working capital through JP Morgan, subject to general counsel approval, or other alternative action as determined by the CEA board. The JP Morgan credit solution included an initial $5 million for startup and working capital costs, and that will fund our expenses through June, when we're up and running and beginning to collect our revenues. Their credit also provided 2 other additional options. Both are subject to credit approval and would be subject to CEA board authorization, but wanted to let the board know that these are also available. One is $5 million for additional liquidity that would be available via standby letters of credit or cash postings for credit contracts as may be required by suppliers. A second $5 million, again, subject to credit approval and CEA board authorization, would become available upon launch for additional working capital or liquidity support for power purchase agreements. The board has taken several steps over the last many months with regards to evaluating and considering its credit solutions for our startup funding. The $5 million is broken up into various categories, including funding our administrative costs through June 2021, providing funding for the California ISO deposit, as well as deposits required for energy supply contracts. We do have initial supply costs that we need to start making payments on in February. And then we have the balance that would go into the bank as working capital cash. There were 2 credit facilities that we were evaluating. One was a credit solution from River City Bank. You may recall that their solution was a $2.5 million non-revolving line of credit, and then a $1.5 million revolving line of credit. The $2.5 million non-revolving line of credit did require security, and that security could be provided by either a guarantee from one or all of the JPA members, or an other creditworthy third party, or cash collateral equivalent to 100% of the non-revolving line of credit. River City Bank, in subsequent recent conversations, had indicated that they would consider reducing or eliminating that guarantee, but we did not get to the point of them coming back with a firm offer to remove that guarantee. They also, at this point, the $4 million would fall short of our current credit need. Pros and cons of the River City Bank option. River City Bank has significant experience working with CCAs and understand the CCA industry. We've had a good experience working with River City Bank. They currently do offer us our operating banking services, and their offer had a favorable interest rate. Again, the cons are we had a potential need of guarantee from our member agencies, and the credit solution amount didn't cover our current need. The JP Morgan $5 million startup and working capital is a revolving line of credit. It has a term of up to 5 years. It is non-recourse to the member agencies, so there is no guarantee required from the member agencies. It's fully a loan and a liability of Clean Energy Alliance. The interest rate will be based on either the 1 month or 3 month LIBOR, which we will select. If the loan had been executed last week, we would be looking at, for a 5-year term, 3.45% plus 0.15%, so approximately 3.6%. So that's a very, very favorable rate. Pros and cons of the JP Morgan is a pro is that the credit facilities are beyond just our basic initial need, and it would provide funding for future needs should they arise. We may have the opportunity. And of course, the non-recourse to the member agencies. Cons included the covenants. So the initial offer from JP Morgan included a rate covenant that required Clean Energy Alliance to set its rates to cover all costs. And since that time, they have improved that term and narrowed it down that the rate covenant would be limited to only those costs that are not paid from other sources or that they are contractual obligations. And that does provide the board flexibility should it want to fund a program or potentially a rate discount out of reserves, that you would then not find yourself not meeting that covenant. The interest rate was slightly higher, but the pro forma that we were looking at reflected that interest rate and didn't have an material impact on the pro forma. We did have a call with JP Morgan, and they subsequently met with their credit committee, and we have received full credit approval by JP Morgan to move forward should the board authorize doing so. And that does conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you for that. And thank you for all the work trying to negotiate on our behalf. Vice Chair Schumacher, do you have any questions?
Nope, no questions, just a comment.
Okay, go, feel free.
Okay, from where we began with this credit solution conversation to where we've landed, you can really see the work that went into getting us the best possible terms. And so I just wanted to say thanks for the incredible work on this. And I'm happy to move the JP Morgan staff recommendation.
Great, and I'm going to second that, and we can call for the vote.
Member Schumacher?
Aye.
Member Drucker?
I think we put abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chair Becker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Let's wait for Board Member Drucker to get back on.
I'm back on.
See how quickly we do things without you? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Obstructionist.
Okay, board member requests for future agenda items. Yes, Vice Chair Schumacher.
Given the conversations that we've had around the ERA proceedings, one of the things that has become abundantly clear to me is that there is the potential in the future for a legislative fix to sort of the arbitrary nature of how those proceedings have been going. And in conversation with staff, there's so much work to be done around this, and I'd love to request an agenda item that discusses the potential expansion of what right now is a discrete job with the ARRA proceedings, to potentially expand that to legislative advocacy with our local legislators for a potential legislative fix, so that in the future we have some more stability in forecasting. So that would be my request at staff's leisure.
And are you saying we pick one of the board members to sort of be the little subcommittee to kind of follow up on that?
Yeah, just to reach out to our state legislators to see if there's interest in pursuing a legislative fix, and potentially any of the other working with other city staff within our JPA, but or even with SDCP to discuss sponsorship of a type of legislative fix.
Okay. All right. Do you have enough direction on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair Becker.
Okay, great. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have three things that I'd like to see on the agenda at some point. One is historic usage at this point. What is, as we're getting out of COVID, or what has been the historic usage, residential versus commercial, over the last maybe couple of years, to understand what that's going to looks like. Other is, what is the status of the San Diego consortium and where they are, and what their future is looking like. And finally, whether or not we should start to, now that the election's over, to reach out to the county of San Diego and Oceanside to see what their thoughts are in terms of joining our group.
Great. Those all sound important. We do have a standing sort of agreement that we are constantly reaching out to the the other cities. But yeah, I think that's a great idea to make a big push, especially for the County of San Diego. Okay, so is that, got all those items? We can work those in at some point. All right, I think that's it. And unless anybody has anything else, we're adjourned to January 21st, 2021 at 2 p.m. And Del Mar will be hosting virtually. And that means that Councilmember Drucker will be doing the flag salute for us. But before we adjourn, Madam CEO, did you have one more thing?
Yes, I just want to wish everyone happy and safe holidays, since we won't see each other before 2021, and we will see you in the new year.
Yes.
Everybody have a great holiday season. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.